coming up, how does it feel to be swallowed by one of the world's largest companies? Whoa, the answer I think will surprise you. Now, I have to ask you, Asa, what were you most afraid of when selling your company to Amazon? And did that, by the way, turn out to be a valid concern?
Mm. I would say I was afraid that I was being naive because during the acquisition, there's all people, it's a little bit of a dating situation. You hear what you want to hear and you're told what you want to hear. And so the reason I'm mentioning that first is because the deeply rooted fear was that we were just going to go into this mammoth company machine. They have processes, they have established people, and we were just gonna kind of get blown up in there. And I don't mean structurally. I mean lose the focus, lose the ability to execute, lose the ability to take risk, and just be bogged down. So that was the biggest fear, and I hope it's a fair fear. It turned out to actually to be unfounded. Um, it's been 2 years, so I feel like that's 24 months, enough of a track record there. And I'm really grateful to Amazon, and I'm also proud of them because when they said you're going to be an independent subsidiary, they meant it. And they've also often said at the highest level of the company, look, if we knew how to solve this problem or how to realize this opportunity, we would have done it. So we bought this company to make that happen. We need to leave you alone to go make that happen. And then at some point when it makes sense to talk, synergies and what have you, then let's talk about it. So they're like, focus, execute, get to market and scale. That's your mission. And I've even been warned by some executives, like, do not come back to us and tell us that this super important thing didn't happen because somebody, I don't know in which corner of Amazon, who's supposedly important, told you to go do XYZ. You figure out a nice professional way to kind of keep focused, and they've structured the companies this way, and we've operated this way.
Now, I've got a question that's going to try to connect two dots. That's the dot about the frozen middle and what you're talking about. And this is something I always found puzzling. I'm going to ramble a little bit. I came up with the idea called inside outsourcing. So I would go to these HR people and say, why don't you, I say, if you could run the function yourself like a business, could you do it better and cheaper? Invariably say, oh, much better and much cheaper. I said, fine. So why don't we just do something called inside outsourcing? You do it like yourself, run it like a business, and it'd be better and cheaper in life. And then, what I got back was, well, what about my pension plan and retirement? And I realized these people are so security conscious. There's no way in hell they're going to do this, right? Because that's why they went into this corporate job in the first place. Now, from your experience, because you've been in a big corporation too, so you've been on both sides of this equation, and you were at Intel, which is not a small company. How can you address what he said about creating this entrepreneurial spirit in a larger company? Any suggestions?
So I think there has to be company infrastructure because otherwise it kind of goes out of control. But being ruthless about having the minimal level of company infrastructure needed. And I mean ruthless. Just eliminate the stupid processes and what I call the minions whose job it is to operate the process machine. Step one. Step two, try to have a minimum lovable breakdown of the different things that need to be accomplished.
Right.
Then create teams and tell them this is what you need to accomplish. What has to be true for you to do that? What do you need to do that? How do you do that? And how do we measure it so that we can meet from time to time to see whether it's happening or not? If you do that, amazing things will happen.
Gotcha. Now, I got a question for both of you on the micro level, which always interests me the most. That is, the same phenomena that you both have been discussing occurs at the micro human level. What happens, you get into middle management, you're comfortable. You're making money, you're making the house payments, you're doing pretty well. And then all of a sudden, the conservative factor starts kicking in where you don't want to lose your job. And then you end up becoming kind of what both of you have been talking about. So now let's forget about what the corporation can do. Think about that individual human being in the middle who's pretty comfortable and maybe a little insecure, wants to keep the job, pay the mortgage. How can that person change on the inside? Aisha, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I think there are two things that are important here. So thing one is know what type of middle manager you are.
Okay.
If you are the executing kind, then be comfortable taking orders and execute and make them happen.
Right.
If you are the ambitious kind, then be careful to not become what I call a prisoner of your ambition, where you are so scared that your ambition is not going to come through that you start sub-optimizing things because you're afraid. To me, if you are in a position of driving the change, you have to be fearless and you have to have a one-on-one with yourself about the fact that you're going to be okay no matter what. Because if you don't do, I mean, it happens to me. Nobody wants to fail. But if you don't push yourself so you can help the team through the transition, then that's a problem. And so one of those things you've taught me is I always have to be ready for the fact that if this doesn't work out, something else will. Because that then brings you the freedom to go execute the change. And if you're a middle manager who doesn't like to do that, then just be happy taking orders.
I like
love
that.
it. Listen, Yves, any reflections on this?
No, I wouldn't have been able to come up with such brilliant answers as Aisha did. Seriously, what she told us, I am less, again, that's why we have different jobs. Marshall is a coach dealing with individuals. Me, I don't deal with individuals. I deal with what he was talking about, the micro. Me, I deal with the meso, which is, the interactions between teams or between leaders and teams, the interaction, the relationships. That's why I'm working on relational productivity at the moment. So to be frank, I don't really know what it takes to change the individual or what they have to do individually. I am more looking at the context of their interaction, their interplay. And that's why I defer to Aisha's answer. I have to admit my limit.